this conversation would be 90% of it would be irrelevant in biblical times or even 100 years ago. But we've gotten so far away from that in our everyday lives. We have to be very intentional about how to live a life that's closer to the way God intended for us. You know, up until 100 years ago, it was most people's lives to go out when the sun rose, work hard, grow your own food, eat animals that you raised or you hunted, and go to sleep when the sun went down. And today, it's very different. You know, the average person grabs a Pop-Tart, rushes out the door in their car, goes to sit down at their desk, comes home, drives through somewhere. You know, even if you're making a healthy choice, we're not outside very much. So we have to be very intentional about how we can get back to the way God intended for us to live, because we're not all farmers today. Wrong way. Okay, so there's a few people that have really influenced my viewpoint on health and fitness. Peter Attia is one of them. He has a book called Outlive, which I highly recommend if you're a reader. And he sums up. Peter Attia was a surgeon by trade, and then after about 5 years in the surgical field, he started thinking this quote that's at the bottom. He thought, what can we do to help prevent people from getting to this operating table? And not that we don't need to treat them once they're here, but we need to, as he says, we need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in the river in the first place. So he has 5 pillars of health that sum up how to live a healthy life. And I'm going to talk about the first 3 mainly tonight: sleep, nutrition, and exercise. And before I get to this next slide, and I think I keep going backwards on accident. Sorry about that. I might just ask you to slide them for me, Luke. That'd be better. So pillar 1 is sleep. And before I even get into that, ground zero, I think, is an annual physical with your doctor. Routine blood work can catch things that you don't even know are going on. And also, I think early screenings are an important foundation for health, especially as you get into your 40s. You know, screening early for prostate cancer and colon cancer for men, breast cancer for women is very important. So I highly recommend a regular relationship with your doctor. Now, as far as sleep goes, I think everybody in here knows that they should sleep more, but it's hard. In the modern world, it's hard. And if your sleep is not regulated, it affects every part of your health, and I think every one of us knows that. And it's really hard to overcome with exercise or nutrition if your sleep is not where it needs to be. I'm going to give you some sleep tips, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this topic, but adults need 7 to 9 hours of sleep on average per night. Some tips would be to go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time every day. I know that's not always possible in our busy lives, but the more consistent you can be with your schedule, the better. There's nothing wrong with caffeine, but avoiding it within the 10 hours before bed is going to help you sleep better. And avoiding eating or drinking for 1 to 2 hours before going to bed, because when your body's digesting food, it's not able to get into that fully rested state that it's trying to be in. Sleep in a dark, quiet room. Studies show that 65 to 67 degrees is the optimal temperature for getting good sleep. And it's more about your body's core temperature cooling down. So those of you who love the 75-degree thermostat, sorry for the bad news, but it's different for everybody, but for the most part, people like that cooler temperature. Taking a hot bath before you go to sleep or a hot shower can actually help cool your body temperature to help you get to a deeper sleep more often. And I'm not a fan. I always tell people, unless a doctor is really guiding you through the process, that sleep medications can get you asleep, but you won't get restful sleep. So before you go to a sleeping medication, I would definitely recommend you talk to your doctor about that. And then obviously having too many kids can really prevent you from sleeping, right, Ashley? So be careful if you like to sleep with how many kids you have. Next slide, please. So when it comes to nutrition, um, in this order, this is to keep it simple and give you some practical advice to take with you. And by the way, there's a lot of slides in tonight's presentation, and two reasons for that. One, I'm not a great speaker, so I'm going to read to you some. But two, there's going to be a way for you to scan this with your phone, a QR code, and take all these with you. So if you're trying to take notes, don't worry about that. This will be available to you. So one, eat real high-quality food. Avoid the highly processed stuff. Try to eat, again, food that was grown or that had a face, that was alive at one point, an animal. Number two, prioritize protein. And I'm going to tell you to aim for about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight is a general guideline. And I'll talk about why that's important. And then this would be phase 3. If you're only going to do one thing, eat high-quality food. The second thing would be prioritize protein. And then last would be to track your calories from time to time. And I'll give you some tips on how to do that as well. Next slide, please. So my wife reminded me of this as we were talking about what I might say tonight. And I've told many people this, that when you're shopping, you need to walk the perimeter of the grocery store. It's where the fresh food is. Anything that's in the middle, it has to be preserved. So there's more processed ingredients and preservatives. So when you go grocery shopping, remember, shop around, walk the perimeter of the store first, get your healthy stuff. And then, of course, there might be some things you need in the middle. The other thing is get rid of unhealthy stuff in your house. And when I was coaching clients and observing my own behavior, it's a lot harder to go to the store at 9 o'clock and buy a pack of Oreos than it is to eat them if they're in the kitchen. So if you're on a health journey, try to keep those things out of your house as much as possible. Next slide, please. So I got a little grocery list for you, and again, you can take this with you. The majority of your plate should be filled with meat, veggies, and berries. And I put a pro tip in there, and that's a picture of our deep freezer, that a farmer's market or wild game are excellent sources of produce and meat. So that's a lot of beef, and there's some venison in there. So that is what should comprise the majority of your plate. Next slide, please. There's Aslan eating an egg. She's the star of the slides tonight. And these are foods that you should eat in moderation. So starchy vegetables, these are corn, potatoes, rice, and beans. Other fruits that are maybe a little higher on the glycemic index, and then dairy. So again, majority of your plate, fruits, vegetables, meats, moderation on these items. And then next slide, please, and eat sparingly these items. Oils, and these are the oils I tell people to keep in their kitchen. Avocado oil, olive oil, coconut oil, and then butter or ghee is just a different form of butter. And then sweets, I'm not here to tell you you can't have sugar, especially on Valentine's Day. But the darker the chocolate, the better, the lower the sugar content. And honey is a healthy natural source of sugar and sweetener. And then there are one of the things our go-tos at our house are the Outshine no sugar added frozen popsicles. They have like 25 calories in them, and that's a way to get your sweet tooth, get your sweet fix at night without indulging too much. Next slide, please. Here's a little list of beverages and then things that we like to keep in the cupboard at our house. And I put a slide in there. You can't see that very good, but it's on the left it says Grande Cold Brew, 5 calories. It's just coffee over ice. And this is a Starbucks item. And on the right it says Salted Caramel Cream Cold Brew. Same drink, but has 230 calories in it. So just be mindful when you're ordering your drinks and drinking your beverages at Starbucks that that's an easy way for calories to sneak in there too. Next slide, please. So in my experience, I think one of the greatest factors, I think a lot of people know what to eat and that they should eat healthy things, but it's, to me, the convenience of having it in your house and having it already prepped in there to eat when you're busy and hungry is the big difference in people who are able to make it happen or not. So this is from our kitchen. I typically, not every week, but most weeks cook a lot of vegetables and meats and package them in Tupperware containers. So if you can do that on Sundays or Saturdays and make that part of your routine, or do that on, some people like to do it 2 days a week and do it like on a Sunday and a midday week. And the difference in is coming home and having to go through the drive-through, or having something that's already kind of prepared and you can just reheat is really important. All right, next slide. So there's my friend Forrest, and I like to use him as an analogy to talk about energy expenditure. So the human body burns calories, and so when you eat calories, you burn them as energy. And about 70% of those calories you burn just by breathing, just by sitting, just by existing. Around 20% of your calories are, on average, come from activity, and the majority of that is non-exercise activity. So not necessarily running or lifting weights, but just moving and the parts of life that are not in the gym. And then there's something called the thermic effect of feeding. You actually burn calories by digesting and eating food, and some calories you burn more by eating them, and some types of calories than others. So when people start to think about, if they're on a weight loss journey, if they're trying to be healthier, a lot of times the first thing they go to is, it's time to hit the gym, it's time to run, time to burn more calories and eat less. But what we should be doing is thinking, how can I build a metabolism that burns more calories at rest? And so that you can take advantage of that 70% of what is going to be burning your calories throughout your day. So there's 3 macronutrients: protein, carbohydrates, and fat. And we're going to talk about why you should prioritize protein as you're thinking about your nutrition. So protein is important for building muscle and repairing tissue that's injured, but it also has a lot of other things that make it an important area of focus, and why I'm telling you to aim for that 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. It keeps you full. So protein is the most satiating. It makes you feel full when you eat it. Mike talked about how having sugar in your bloodstream is the cause of a lot of oxidative stress and disease. And having protein when you eat slows down the digestive process and keeps that blood sugar spike to a minimum. It also helps, like we said, increase your muscle mass and strength. So the more muscle mass you have, the more energy you burn at rest. So that 70% of the calories you're burning, somebody who has 20 more pounds of muscle than someone else burns a significant amount more calories than the person without muscle. The other cool thing about protein is you burn about 30% of it just by digesting it. So if you have 100 calories of protein, you're actually only having a net about 70 calories. Whereas if you eat fat and carbohydrates, you're going to burn a lot less of that. The other reason protein's so important is that as we age, we can't utilize it as much. So the older you are, actually the more protein you need to repair muscle tissue and just for overall health. Next slide, please. Energy balance is just the concept that if you eat more than you burn, you will, for the most part, gain weight, okay? If you eat an equivalent amount of calories that you burn, you will maintain, and if you take in less calories, then there's a negative energy balance where you can lose weight as well. And, I think the biggest thing to know here is that your body doesn't like big swings one way or the other. And so I'm going to talk about, Mike talked about the benefits of fasting, which are tremendous. And there's another form of maintaining a healthy energy balance called caloric restriction. And studies show that restricting your calories, or just making sure you have a healthy energy balance, increases your lifespan in almost every study. Fasting and just having a healthy amount of calories in your diet have similar effects, whether it's from having an overall healthy body or autophagy like Mike talked about. And your body will adapt to any extremes. So if you have an extremely low calorie diet and you're exercising like crazy, your body will slow down its metabolism to try to survive, okay? And the faster you try to lose weight or make a change, the more your body will fight against that. So it's our first instinct, and it's my personality, and it was a lot of my clients' personalities. January 1st, all right, I'm going to start eating less. I'm going to start running more. And the first thing you find out is that that works for a few weeks, and then your body starts to adapt, and your energy's low, and all of a sudden you're not making the progress you once were before. So now I'm going to talk more about exercise, and then we'll tie all this back together. So again, sleep, nutrition. This is the exercise part. The number one thing you can do is walk more. You don't have to have a gym membership. Just finding ways to increase your steps throughout the day. And one of the best investments I think you can make is either a pedometer that goes on your wrist, or a Fitbit, or a watch that tracks your steps. And a great place to start is just wear something like that and see how many steps you take in a day. And the average person takes about 3,000 or 4,000 steps a day. And if that's where you find you are, see if you can make it 7,000. And that's again, outside the gym, that's just taking the stairs, if you have a desk job like I do, getting up and walking around the office or walking around the building a couple times a day. And the other thing is a daily mobility routine. So especially the older you get, of course, joints get stiffer, we lose mobility. And as you age, especially as you get into your 80s and 70s, 80s, 90s, the lack of mobility can be a big limiting factor in your independence. So I'll talk about how to incorporate a daily mobility routine. If you do nothing else, just walk more and stretch a little bit. Phase 2 would be add some resistance training. Every other day is plenty. One day is better than nothing if you're starting from zero. And then the last thing, and it seems backwards, because usually, again, cardio is the first place people want to go, is the last thing you should do is add 2 to 3 cardio sessions per week. This is another quote from Peter Attia. He says, exercise is unequivocally the best weapon in our arsenal when it comes to fending off a deterioration in health and extending your lifespan. And there's a couple studies that I will reference that highlight that. So, as I said, I think if you can incorporate a 5-minute mobility routine into your life, first thing when you wake up, or if it feels better before you go to bed or before you exercise, it'll really make you feel better. There are 3 ways that your joints can move. Gina, you could probably give us a tutorial on this, but the ways your joints move are flexion, extension, and rotation. So if you're trying to get a mobility routine, I suggest you start with your spine. And so we all get stiff in our backs as we get older. And so the ways that you can stretch are to flex, which would be to just round your back and flex forward as much as you can, to extend, or to rotate. And so a mobility routine daily, whether you're standing up or you lay on your back, and just get your spine in flexion, extension, and rotation is a great place to start. And then if you go from there, move down to the limbs, rotate your shoulders, flex and extend your arms and your wrists and your knees, and 5 minutes is all it takes. And then, next slide, please. I'm going to give you a little bit more info why building muscle is so important. It's not about looking good. It's about living that long, healthy life that we're trying to live and be the best version of yourself. So there's Bugs, and Bugs is really muscular at the bottom. And I always heard people, especially women, when I told them they needed to build muscle, won't I get bulky? I don't want to look bulky. I want to look toned. And the answer is you will definitely not get bulky by adding muscle or building weights unless you are a world-class power lifter or taking some testosterone, okay? So building muscle and having a low body fat gives you the toned look that people want for. So you won't get bulky, but you might get toned. Muscle mass is also is a great predictor of how long people live. Again, as you get think about being 80, 90 years old and beyond, how independent you are is very dependent on your strength and your muscle mass. And we lose about 1% per year of our muscle mass as we hit about 30 and beyond. So the more muscle mass you can build younger in life, the more you can hold on to, the better. It's protective against nearly every disease, even cognitive decline. So we all know that exercise releases endorphins. There are properties of muscles and chemicals that are released in the activity of having muscle that helps prevent against neurological diseases. Another thing is Mike did a good job talking about how amazing our bodies are and how the liver is a place where you can get sugar if you need it last week. Well, your muscles are responsible for, they use a lot of the sugar in your bloodstream for energy. So your body can store about 500 grams of glycogen, which is sugar that's that's mixed with water that's in your muscles. And so the more muscle you have, the less blood sugar is going to be in your bloodstream. That lowers your risk for diabetes. It lowers your risk for nearly every disease that kills people. So it's amazing all the things that having muscle will do for you. And it's not just a way to look good or feel good. It's a longevity tool. When you exercise, you also deplete glycogen. So your body uses the sugar or the glycogen stored in your muscles as energy. And the type of exercise you do dictates how long that process takes. If you're going for a walk or if you're doing something slow and easy, you have enough sugar in your muscles to sustain you for almost a whole day. But if you do heavy weightlifting or high intensity exercise, 20 to 30 minutes, you're completely depleted of glycogen. So it has a similar effect to fasting, like Mike was talking about. It gets blood sugar out of your bloodstream. Having muscle, doing these type of exercises, weightlifting and high intensity exercise, is preventative for nearly every disease known to man. The one thing I would tell you is that fasting or restricting calories mixed with high intensity exercise or weight training can create some energy issues, because your body does, if it's already depleted of glycogen from fasting, and now you're trying to do exercise that your body wants to use glycogen for, you're already out. It's going to go to other fuel sources, which would be your own muscle or other places that you don't want it to go. So, and that's, you've probably heard of athletes that are going to run marathons or before a football game. We used to go carb load before football games. And that's why you're filling your muscles with glycogen so you can have the energy to go do these high intensity exercises. Next slide, please. So this is a really cool study on why you should also do some cardiovascular exercise. So this is in Peter Attia's book, Outlive. They took 122,000 patients, and they tested their VO2 max, just a test of their cardiovascular fitness. And they ranked them from low to below average to average to elite. And they followed their lives over the next 10 years or so, and they just tracked all-cause mortality, just who lived and who didn't for any reason. And what they found was that people that were in the low category, which would be the bottom 25%, versus people in the top 3%, the elite, had a 5 times higher risk of all-cause mortality over about 10 years. Average age was about 55 years old in this study. Going from the low to high fitness increased their likelihood of living beyond that time fourfold. And then going from low to above average was a 2.75 fold increase in their likelihood to live beyond that time. So to put that in perspective, your risk of smoking, if you're a smoker, goes up by about 41%. And so 500% from going to low fitness, cardiorespiratory fitness, to high, versus 40% for being a smoker. 40% for being diabetic, and 21% for having hypertension. That's crazy. And so, the other thing that I thought was really cool about this study is going from low to below average was a 200% increase. So the type of cardio you have to do to improve your cardio fitness is not running marathons. It's walking. It's just moving and having lungs that can breathe well. So I thought that was a cool study that highlights how important cardiovascular fitness is. The type of cardio you do, like I said, does not need to be high intensity all the time. Most of your exercise should be in a state where you can still have a conversation, but you're sweating or you're working hard. So that's like a brisk walk. I like to do incline walks on a treadmill when it's cold outside, but the best thing is to walk outside if you can. High intensity cardio is a good thing to do, but you need to be aware of how it affects your central nervous system and your energy levels. So obviously, when I owned my gym, we were a CrossFit gym for the majority of the time. So early in my career, it was all about how hard we could go. Danny, you've done CrossFit. It's how hard can you go every workout, and how does it feel? And what I learned over time was that your body does not like to get beat down every time you work out, and that although you might burn more calories in that 30-minute session where you're doing burpees and doing sprints the whole time, the rest of the day you're worn out, so you're going to move less. You're going to go home and sit down. And then your central nervous system's you're going to be more tired and burn less energy for the next couple of days. So I always tell people to try to limit your high-intensity cardio sessions like sprinting or doing something hard and fast to 1 or 2 days a week for that reason. Next slide, please. So I don't know that you can see that good, but again, you can take this with you. And I'm going to talk about how to put a workout program together. So if you have a gym or if you're trying to do this at home, there are 4 movements on the left over here, four planes of movement. Upper body push, upper body pull, and lower body, and then core movements. Those should make up every time you work out, the best way to do it is to do one of these planes of movement. So an upper body push, there's 3 planes of movement. Overhead would be vertical, a bench press or a push-up would be horizontal, and then downward would be like a dip, okay? And then you can pull by doing vertical pull, which would be pull-ups or lat pull-downs, a row, or an upright row. And then for your lower body, you're looking at a squat where you squat down, stand up, a deadlift where you're like picking something up off the ground, or a single leg variation like a lunge or a step up, or there's a lot of variations of single leg. And then again with your core, flexion would be a sit-up, extension would be like a lower back. We lay on your stomach and raise up and extend your spine, or rotation. If you got a medicine ball, or just rotated side to side. And then on the right, these are isolation options, which would be working one joint at a time, a bicep curl, a tricep extension, a leg extension, a leg curl, and then, of course, some cardio options. So next slide, please. And hit one more time. So this is how I tell most people to put a workout program together. The best thing to do is to, if you're going to only work out 1 day a week, do this all in 1 day. If you're going to do 2 days a week, I recommend separating 2 days a week or more, separate your strength training days and your cardio days. So you would start with an upper body push, an upper body pull, and a lower body movement. And where you see it says A1, A2, A3, I like to do that in a circuit. So you would do, let's say, go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Let's say we pick these exercises to fit in that box. You would have bench press or push-ups, lunge, and a one-arm row. So the best way to do this is to go in a circuit, do 1 set of bench press, do 1 set of lunges, do 1 set of one-arm rows, and then repeat that 3 times. That's 3 sets of 10 reps. And then, so I recommend a push, upper body pull, lower body every time you work out. It keeps it simple. It makes sure that you're not neglecting a certain part of your body. And these movements are compound movements, which means they involve more than one joint. So you're going to work the most amount of muscles possible. Then the next part would be a core and 2 isolation movements that you can pick from the box that I showed you before. Next slide, please. And this is just an example of how to do the same thing if you're working out at home. We have, at our house, I have a gym, a little home gym, but also we do some family workout stuff too. And some days I just sit in the living room with the kids. Ashley's shaking her head. She's worked out with me once or twice, but the kids will sit on my back while I do push-ups, or we'll do, I'll put them on my shoulders and do lunges. We'll make it just something fun to do together. But this is just an example of how you can do the same thing at home. So when you're putting a workout plan together, start with a 5-minute warm-up. And I always recommend starting with about 60 seconds of rest between sets. 1 to 2 minutes is fine. 3 sets of 10 is a great place to start. And some other rep ranges that are good are 4 sets of 8, 5 sets of 5, or 3 sets of 15. And in general, the lower the number of reps, the more strength you're going to build, and the higher the number of reps, the more muscular endurance you're going to build. Every 6 to 8 weeks, change it up. Mix up your reps, your sets. If you were using a barbell, switch to dumbbells. If you're doing both arms at the same time, switch to one arm at a time. But in general, those same planes of movements will never, you never really have to move away from those, but mix up your reps and sets. Next slide, please. This slide's a quick slide on supplements. This is a picture of the supplements that I take daily. And supplements should be just that. They should supplement a great nutrition and exercise routine. They're not going to be the end-all, be-all, but they are easy to take, and they can make a difference. 50% of Americans are deficient in vitamin D and magnesium, so that's a great place to start. 40% of us are deficient in vitamin B12, and so those 3, I always tell people that they could usually benefit from taking those. A multivitamin's a good catch-all for any of the micronutrients that you're not getting if you're not eating a perfect diet. Fish oil is great for nearly every health marker that is known to man. And then creatine is something that used to be just for meatheads. And I remember in high school, if you were taking creatine, it was like you were doing something crazy. And now, 20-some years later, it's the most studied, safest supplement out there. And it's great for not only building muscle, but it's great for a variety of other health reasons as well. And then a probiotic, because a lot of your health is dependent on your gut health. Brother Mike has already talked about this, and he's going to talk about it more actually next week. We're going to continue this series because he has some more to talk about. But cold and heat exposure have been shown to be very beneficial. So sauna or a cold shower or a cold bath, I'm sure you're seeing more and more about how these things can benefit your health as well. And next slide. And so these are my final 2 slides. Leave you with some tips. And I don't know if you can see that, but my suggestion is to focus on one habit at a time. Again, I saw a lot of people come in on January 1st. That's when we made the most of our money in the gym industry. And then by February or March, it cleared out. But rather than jumping into this thing head first, try to add one new healthy habit per month is a great way to do this. So this is a year-long layout of if you added one of these healthy things I talked about tonight per month for the next year, you'd be a different person. And it's one small change a month. So February, it says eat whole foods. Try to get 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. March, try to get 8,000 steps a day. April, add 1 day of resistance training. May, get an extra hour of sleep. That's a nice break, right? Just nothing new, just try to sleep better. June, add a second resistance training day. July, let's kick it up a notch, try to get 10,000 steps a day. August, add a day of cardio. September, add a third resistance training day. October, add a second cardio day. November, add some supplements. December, add one high-intensity cardio day. January, track your calories for a month. So, again, this is just one example of how to do that. And I'll close with some tips for success on how to put this all together. My dad's here tonight, and he has one word of advice that I'll leave with you, and it's moderation. And anytime I asked him for advice growing up, that word was in there somewhere, because I'm an extreme all-or-nothing type personality. So progress is better than perfection in these things, okay? If you go from baseline 0 and driving through Palace 3 times a day and you eat a healthy breakfast, that's winning, okay? If you're taking 3,000 steps a day and you move to 4,000, that's winning. And also, don't feel guilty about eating some candy on Valentine's Day. It's good to enjoy things that you enjoy in life, and especially when I'm talking to our kids, I tell them, keep it simple. Hey, if you eat healthy half the time, you can eat what you want the other half. And that's as simple as we keep it in our house. And in general, don't make a change that in your lifestyle with your health and your nutrition and exercise that you aren't willing to do forever. That's a bold statement, right? People ask me all the time, are you on a diet? And no, this is just how I eat most of the time. And every now and then you'll catch me eating ice cream in the kitchen at 10 o'clock, right, Ashley? But make it a lifestyle, because I'm telling you, I've seen it happen again and again. All in on a new diet or exercise program, it wears out. But if you can make it a lifestyle, you'll stick with it. And last slide. If this is something you want to take with you, pull out your phone, scan this QR code, and you'll have the link to the whole presentation. Obviously, a lot of content, but I wanted you to have a grocery list and some of these things to take with you. And thank you for pulling your phones out, even if you're really not taking it with you. It makes me feel great. And it's 8:01, so thank you so much for giving me your time. I hope you learned something, and excited for Mike to continue this next week. You want to pray and dismiss us, Pastor? All right.